Okay, so hello everyone to the last interview of the series, 2 weeks of databases. So this is the final episode, and this time we have Monty Widenius. Hi, Monty.
Hi.
It's great to have you here. I'm sure that a lot of people was waiting for this interview. Okay, sorry, I have to block the echo. Okay, so I always start these interviews by asking the host to talk a bit about his background. Can you talk about your background a bit?
From where do you want me to start? When I was really little, or university, or when I started with databases? It's a big topic.
If you start from university, it will be great, because
yes,
maybe you have a lot of interesting things to say.
Yes, so I basically learned computers before university because I started it already when I was 15. There were no books or anything really around computers, so I basically had to learn everything myself by studying Intel manuals and so on. So when I come to university, I noticed that at least on the computer side, they really didn't have much to teach me, and I was already working full time. So I worked about 2 years studying full time at the same time, and then I continued just doing real work. And with databases, I come into by accident. There were a problem at work. I was working at a Finnish company just before university, and it was a storage problem of how to store a customer, and it was just basics. You had no database, only simple files, and so I come up with a way to do that. And the university, I did then learn later on that it was called hashing, and from there it then led to that I was doing more and more with databases together with some people in Sweden, and it kind of grew on me, on the sense that I was always trying to fulfill what customer wanted. And so I had this database program that I created, and I spent most of my time just improving it for different customers. And then I come into contact with a Swedish company, Analytikerna, who did data warehousing on big data, which back then, when a hard disk was only some 20-50 megs. Big data was smaller than now, with the same challenges you have now, because you also had, let's say, the proportion between memory and disk. It was back then the same as now. So all the big data problems that exist back then is similar to what we have now. But I took my program and enhanced it for working with big data. And then one of our customers wanted to access the data over the internet. That was in '94 when internet started to be popular. So I wrote SQL on top of my old project, and then we released it for the customers. And at the same time we did release for the customers, me and David Axmark had a discussion, said that no, we have something we can give back to the free software environment, because before that we didn't really have anything that was useful enough. So that's why we made first under a free license, and then later we went to GPL. But basically everything comes from just helping customers and users better use our project. And I think that's one of the best ways to develop software. And if your customers and users are happy, you probably have a good project.
Interesting advice. Do you want to continue with the story of MySQL and then MariaDB?
No, so with MySQL we started, we had the first release in end of 95, 96. And we could continue with a small team. Basically started with me in Finland, David Axmark in Sweden, and we always worked based on the income. But MySQL was in the beginning so popular, so we were within 2 months we were profitable, and then we started to hire people from the community who were using it. I think Senisa was the first one from Yugoslavia, and Sergey was close afterwards from Germany. So we just hired people, and then we did grow to 2,000 when we were 15 people. And that's when we decided that, no, we need to do this more professional. I didn't want to do all bookkeeping and paying salary and everything else. So we took an investment, and then we did grow the company forward. But we did always the focus that we should do the right thing from open source point of view. So when we took in investors, and this is a good lesson for anybody who believe in open source and want to ensure that your visions are followed even when you have company investors. So we had a shareholders agreement who said that MySQL is guaranteed to be open source, and we, the founders, me and David Axmer, we are the one who decides upon this. And that was the way that we could keep MySQL open source up to the end when we were sold to Sun. And most people know the story. We were sold to Sun. 1 year later, Oracle made an offer to buy MySQL. Me and a lot of other people from the MySQL community didn't really believe that Oracle would have the best interest in mind when it comes to MySQL. So just to ensure that all the work that we had done on MySQL wouldn't go to waste, we did a fork of MariaDB, which has been quite successful.
Yeah. Okay, it's not completely in topic, but I remember that in the past you also had a SAP databases, right?
Yeah, so one of our big wins in the early days, this was around 2003, I think, was that SAP had tested MySQL. We actually extended MySQL for their needs, and they noticed that no, we can run SAP, their main database product, on MySQL, and actually displace Oracle in many cases. And that is the most likely reason why Oracle bought InnoDB, because when we were about to get the certification that Novi can be run as under SAP, that was basically the same month when Oracle did buy InnoDB. And InnoDB was one of the reasons that we were so successful in the past.
Okay.
And but when we were working with SAP as part of the relationship, they had a SAP database that they really liked to develop, but they had no success in getting that adopted. So we did an agreement that we should take the database, name it MaxDB, and then release it to open source and help them make it popular. But unfortunately, even if the product was good, that was never a success, mainly because the code was so complex that it was more or less impossible for outsiders to contribute. And that was because they were coded in one language, and then they have a compiler who then compile the code to C, and then they compile that with another one. So to be able to use MaxDB, sorry, then you had basically to learn 2 different languages, and there were no much documentation about that. So this is also kind of a little bit of lesson that if you do an open source project, if you either by accident or by design made a product too complex, so that it's really hard for new people to come into, you will probably not have a high adoption, at least not among the developers.
Okay. So coming to modern days, I have a curiosity, and probably other people have the same curiosity. How is Monty's typical day, work day, I mean?
I basically wake up around 9:30, and then I read some news, and then I go up, have a breakfast, and start working. And usually day I work to around 5 when I make food for me and my family. Then I spend a little bit of work time until around 7, 8 when I watch a movie with my wife. And then I go back to work and work to about 12, 1. And if it's a good day and I have finished what I was supposed to do, then I may play a little bit with PlayStation or something else for 1 hour before going to bed.
Okay, great.
And so I go usually to bed around 2, 3.
Okay, great. And how much of your work is hands-on and how much is hands-off?
No, thanks to the strange word order we have now, I'm working even more than usual on coding. Normally, I have been traveling a lot, meeting people all over the world, both about holding talks but also visiting customers and helping them with their database needs. But the last 3 months, I've been working more from home, which is actually good because I always said that I would like to program about 50% of my time. And no, working from home, I'm basically doing that 90% of my time. So in that case, life is really good.
Okay, and you can finally rest, I guess.
No, I mean,
No?
I'm sleeping a few hours, and actually I do enjoy traveling and meeting customers and understanding their problems, because I noticed that you get something from your community, from Jira or in Freenode where I hang out. But when you go to the customer, you get the things that people don't think about bringing up because it's just such a little thing. But the little thing can actually be something that is really, really annoying. And going to the customers and seeing that, why are you doing things that way? That's really, really not productive. And then you notice that, okay, that because we don't have that feature to do that easy in MariaDB. I was just a customer looking at how they were using partitioning. And there's a kind of easy way to take a table, external table, add it to partitioning, and taking it, also removing it. But the syntax is totally crazy. You have to do a lot of work just to do that for no reason whatsoever. But if I wouldn't have seen that, about that, why are you doing that? I would never have come up with a better way to do that. So that's something I plan to do in 10.6.
Okay. I wonder if they're watching us. In any case, let's come to the core topic, which is of course MariaDB. Do you want to talk a bit about the new features that you or the rest of the team are working on?
You mean about 10.5 that is just about to be released?
Yeah.
I can first take mine. I mean, everything is in the knowledge base. We have tried to make sure that everything we do around MariaDB is so that anybody can easily follow us, see when things are done, and even participate in that. So going to knowledge base and searching for 10.5, you will see all the feature sets. But I've lately working on a couple of things that I thought first was not that exciting, but actually was interesting. So I just added to 10.5 S3 storage engine, so that allows you to store archive data on S3. But what's of course it's S3, it's read only because it's not really a file system. It's more a way to store files. But working on that, I also worked on some other things that I haven't done so much on before. So we have a discovery in MariaDB. The nice thing with the discovery and S3 support discovery, that if you put your database on S3, anybody who has the credentials to access S3 can access those tables instantly when you create those. And it also works with replication, both in the setup where the slave, the master and the slave shares the same S3, or it's a different S3. And by adding that features, it also allows us to do distributed storage engines much easier than we ever could done before. So that was kind of a additional benefit of the work. So even if there's 3 engine, it's not interested for everyone, but except if you want to have a cheap way to store data, the benefits it's add to the code is really, really great. And another thing that I just finished on my computer that some here is that I fixed some things in Aria to make it more look like the other engines. But one benefit of that is that now it's relatively easy to move the MySQL system tables to another storage engine. So if you want to only run in a DB or only want to have RocksDB and you have wondered what should I do with your system tables, now it's actually not that hard anymore to move it to another engine. And that was actually a lot of work that comes as a benefit for something else that I was doing. So in both these cases, it's kind of interesting that you start working on one problem, but when you solve that problem properly and right, you get a lot of other benefits in the future.
Yeah.
So, but other ways we have a lot of features in 10.5 that are interesting, but at least those are the ones that I've been worked on lately.
Okay. I have a personal opinion that I would like to share with you to check if you agree and maybe to let you comment. And that is that, in my opinion, MariaDB is better at coding than communicating what it has. And I can make 2 examples for this. Because, for example, if you think about hash joins and histograms, when they were implemented in MySQL, there were a lot of talk about them. But actually, MariaDB implemented them first, and almost no one noticed.
The thing is that we still are a small company. We have MariaDB Corporations now is about 240 people, and we don't have that many people who are actively blogging or everything else. Most of us are developers, and we are more interested in looking at the code. So we are kind of little bit depending on the community and things like this event to get things out. So that's kind of is a weakness. From the same thing with me, I really would need to blog more, but in the past, I did blog much more, but now it's one blog every half a year, which is way too seldom. And I need to personally also do that better. But so you are right. We are more focused on the technology than and helping customers than communicating everybody what we are doing. But what I'm happy with is that what we do extremely well. So.
Yeah, of course. Okay, so I asked some people from the community to make some questions for you. Okay, I did this privately. So I have some questions from other people that I'm going to ask. I will start with a question from Gordon Bobic, who asks, why did you choose to use Aria for internal temporary tables instead of InnoDB?
For temporary tables, actually Aria is easier because it can both. It has different storage format, and it's not as good as on transactions and rollback and InnoDB. The format that we use is much simpler, and so it actually is faster for that particular case. If you would then add concurrent access, then InnoDB is much better. But for temporary tables, you don't need concurrent access. You're a single user. So all these mutexes that InnoDB has, these other threads that handle things in the background, Aria doesn't need. And that makes it easier. And also that it was easier to add protection, add encryption on Aria. Because with temporary tables, things can easily leak. And you don't want to leak that. So we have compression only on those parts. And that was also easier to do in Aria than in InnoDB.
This leads to a question from myself, which is related, because I remember that at the beginning, Aria was probably going to be some kind of replacement for InnoDB, and you were probably investing a lot in developing it, but then at some point, you probably mostly stopped to do that and started investing into InnoDB instead. So the question is, what happened?
So going back to the incident when Oracle bought InnoDB. So we, back in the time in MySQL, we needed to have a replacement for InnoDB. Fortunately, we had an ironclad agreement with InnoDB, so we did know that we can use it basically more or less forever. It still will be accessible, but we didn't have any guarantees that Oracle would continue developing InnoDB. So we need, and the other thing is that when you have a company and you want to sell it and make investors happy, it's hard to sell if somebody else owns a core piece of your product. So we decided to go two ways. We were trying to find a replacement externally and internally. So externally, we contacted some friends of mine, and that then became the Falcon storage engine. But I wasn't happy with the progress of Falcon, and I always had a intention to actually learn everything about transactions and related things. And so we decided that let's not put everything in the same basket. So we started the Aria project as a way to replace InnoDB. So we had, and then Falcon Aria went with two teams. My team we were 5 people working on Aria. So and they went in parallel until Sun bought us. And one of the reasons that Sun did buy us was that they did see that there were a problem with the InnoDB storage engine not owned by MySQL, but they had confidence that one of the projects that we were working in, the Falcon or Maria engine that it was called back then, would succeed. So and then within Sun, I continued to develop it. And the reason I actually left Sun was that I couldn't within Sun get enough resources to continue with the Aria storage engine fast enough. So we did agreement with Sun that I would go out and take the team with me, and also some other people from MySQL who didn't want to stay at Sun. And I created Monty Program AB, and we should focus on producing InnoDB replacement for Sun. So that was the reason I left. Not because I wasn't happy with Sun, but I wanted to ensure that that the Aria storage engine actually could be a full replacement, and also that Sun wouldn't lose engineers. I could basically hire them and let them work indirectly for Sun. But a couple of months after we formed this new company, that was when Oracle announced that they will buy buy Sun, and they also made it pretty clear to the European Commission that the only reason they wanted to buy Sun was to get the hands on MySQL. And if they wouldn't get MySQL, they wouldn't buy Sun. So that was when we did a fork to MariaDB. But when you then do a fork of something big as MySQL, you need to decide on what is more important: to finish this engine or start to actually do the bigger, more important work, ensure that MariaDB would survive. Under the name of MySQL will survive under the name of MariaDB. So that's why we put the resources on MariaDB instead. And we did also assume that if Oracle are going to buy Sun and they have a promise to keep MySQL alive, there were a big chance that they also would keep InnoDB alive. So we thought that as long as InnoDB works good enough, let's concentrate on doing the thing with Aria that it was really good at. That was temporal tables and some other parts. And then concentrate on working with InnoDB for the transactional part, as long as InnoDB would be actively developed. But later on, we noticed that we need more resources on InnoDB, so we hired some of the best InnoDB developers in the world on working on InnoDB in MariaDB. And we're very happy with the progress we are doing. We think that the InnoDB engine we have is the best of the breed that exists.
So in case someone who's not in MariaDB community is watching, I want to say that, well, you're of course talking about Marco, who was with us 3 days ago, I think.
Yeah, and Marco is great, but I think we have 4 or 5 InnoDB people now.
Great. So you also have a question from, sorry, from Konstantin Osipov. He asks,
hi Konstantin, if you're watching.
I interviewed him also. He's really a nice guy. So he asks, can you single out a feature that makes the whole difference between MariaDB and MySQL?
I think actually the open sourceness is not really a feature, but I think that the most important things comparing MySQL and MariaDB is the release schedule, or the upgrades, the easy way to do upgrades, and the open sourceness guarantee. I think that's the reason that people should choose MariaDB. But if you look at the features, I would just say that the way that we enhance the storage engine interface and actually expand on it and do more engines compared to MySQL, who goes the other way and tries to remove everything from it. I think that's kind of is the biggest feature if you're looking forward. For example, we have the Connect engine. We allow you to do joins with Oracle, Postgres, and MariaDB within one database. I think that's great. That's really great. And the Spider engine, we have a Tencent Games, one of the biggest big games companies in the world, running everything on that. And they couldn't do that without the engine interface. But for looking at the biggest feature from a customer point of view that people are talking about nowadays is our Oracle compatible layer. MySQL doesn't have anything like that. So that allows you to relatively easy move applications written in Oracle PL/SQL to MariaDB. From a customer point of view, that's probably the most important one.
If you had to restrict the answer to only one feature just to make Konstantin happy, what would you say?
I would say still the PL/SQL layer.
Okay, great. Then you have a question from Peter from Percona, and he asks, how do you see the current MariaDB and MySQL compatibility, and how do you think it will evolve in the future?
So up to 5.7, we made a great point of making it trivial to move from MySQL to MariaDB. And unfortunately, with the way that they store data in 8.0, it's not possible. But what we are trying to ensure is that if you have an application running with MySQL, you can always use MySQL dump and dump your data and read them into MariaDB, and that should work. So we are working on it, ensuring that that should be always the case for the foreseeable future. Some cases we miss, but I'm pretty sure that what community will inform us if we do something wrong, and in that case we will add it. What makes this harder is that lots of features are developed first in MariaDB, like for example multi-source replication, and then MySQL copies that and then add that under totally different syntax for no reason whatsoever. So we then also have to support their syntax, and that of course causes some some issues. But from a practical point of view, moving from MySQL to something else, MariaDB is still the easiest choice.
Okay.
But we do make some mistakes, but we're also doing our best to fix it. So one thing that I wasn't aware of until recently was that the format in MySQL 5.7 for storing JSON is different from ours in MariaDB. It's easy to fix that you first, before going from MySQL to MariaDB, you convert your JSON to text instead of JSON type, and then things work. But that's still not the way it should be to do easy migrations. So we are now fixing into 10.4 and later, so that we can read the new or the JSON format from MySQL to MariaDB instantly, just so that from all MySQL versions, it still takes just seconds to upgrade to MariaDB. And after I0, you have to do it with MySQL dump.
Okay. Personal question, even if Peter didn't ask it.
Actually, if you quickly get, so what we are committing in and trying our best to do is that ensuring that the protocol online is the same, so that you can use a MySQL client or MariaDB client, and both should work against MariaDB. So applications need that. Can you still hear me? Okay.
Yeah, sure.
And other thing is that ensuring that we should support all syntax from MySQL. Some of the MySQL syntax doesn't make sense, so we may have to do a MySQL mode. The same we have Oracle mode to do those if there's something conflicting, at least in the future. But we are kind of prepared to do that. MySQL is still important. Let's say MySQL users are still important for us.
Okay. Do you also aim to keep compatibility with external tools? So, for example, in the case of extra backup, you had at some point to fork it. But in general, do you aim to have working tools with both MySQL and MariaDB?
I don't want to fork tools if I don't absolutely necessarily have to. The thing was that the extra backup tool, it didn't do everything that we needed, and we wanted to do the best backup that exists in the MySQL MariaDB space. And there was lots of works, actually months of works for doing that, and it's kind of almost impossible to do that both for MySQL and MariaDB. So I would say that the backup tool is a special case. But for other tools, we have no plans to fork it. We are happy to work with Percona to ensure that their tools works both with us and with them, and so on. And that also for any other vendor who has tools. So we actively actually contact vendors who are using MySQL to ensure that their tools also work with MariaDB.
Okay. You have a question in the chat. Ankit asks, in which use cases a user or business should move or migrate from MySQL to MariaDB?
I don't see any reason to use MySQL for anything, because you always have a lock-in. With MariaDB, you can be sure that you can run it with our version on the premise. You can easily move it to any cloud. You are in control, and you're in control of all the code. With MySQL, you are not. Okay. And also the question, I don't know of any important feature that exists in MySQL that doesn't exist in MariaDB, and we usually do it better than they do. Okay, that's of course my opinion, but we do have the benefit is that when we copy something from MySQL, we do a full analysis of it and find the weaknesses and then do it better. And it's of course much easier to do it better when you have studied how somebody else has done it first.
Okay, as a general question, when MySQL implements a useful feature, do you still aim to import it regularly to MariaDB, or or will you decide from case to case?
So lately, the last 3-4 years, I think I don't remember any notable things that we have taken from MySQL. We basically have decided to implement it ourselves, and that's just because we're in MariaDB, you have almost all of the original MySQL developers. We know the code from start to bottom, all the ways to do it efficiently. Oracle has really good developers, but they don't know all the code. So they do a lot of strange mistakes that we would never do. So it's in most cases easier for do rewrite from scratch and then just testing against MySQL and to ensure that we work the same way. But that's kind of what you do when you have the benefits of knowing the code better.
Okay. It would be great to have in the same interview someone from Oracle so they could answer. In any case, next question is from Mark Callaghan, and he asked, actually I had very similar question privately from other persons, and the question is, how is BSL working out?
I mean, within the MariaDB corporation, we only use BSL for max scale. So, and that's our proxy. But the main reason to introduce BSL was to help people who would love to work on open source but can't afford it. Still have some ways so that you can earn an income and still know that you are still benefiting the open source community and produce more open source, even which for one with a delay. And we have, for example, CockroachDB, a relatively big company who using BSL. We have Bruce Parents, one of those who named open source, also giving very good comments about BSL, that this is the right way to go forward in those cases where you can't, because of business reasons, afford to go open source right away. So I think it's going out quite good. It's not for everyone, but definitely it's a choice that is better than closed source or some other version where you have only a closed source version or enterprise version, and no way for users to get access to the code. I mean, the benefit of BSL from end user is that you know that for some time you may have to pay, but you are guaranteed to be in charge of your own destiny, because the code will be free and everything is accessible from the start. So I think it's a good compromise between open source and closed source, and probably one of the best ones.
Okay. Some time ago, MariaDB bought Clustrix. Do you want to explain what Clustrix is, why you bought it, and what we will see in the future?
So looking at databases, and actually I think MariaDB is a good example, is that databases is quite good at read scaling. MariaDB, we have the most advanced topologies that exist for databases. You can have rings, you can have you have Galera and other things. So read scaling is kind of solved. The one thing that no database that's really good is write scaling. And Clustrix have solved that problem. But if you have the double amount of nodes, you get the double amounts of write capacity. And if you need 4 times, you just add more nodes. It scales almost perfectly proportional to the number of nodes. There's no other database, mainstream SQL, who can do that. No SQL is easier because you don't have ACID, you don't have multi-versioning and other things that is needed to get high performance for with stability and no data loss. Clustrix can do that. So I'm really excited about that. And we are working full-time to integrate that into MariaDB as a storage engine. We already have prototypes working relatively good. And by the end, let's say, either the summer, I don't know exact timetable, not my team, but we will see some users already running it within MariaDB definitely this year. And next year we should have a optimized version that can do much more. And my work is to ensure that, or my wish is that we will have some versions of Clustrix also available for the open source community. I don't think we can have the full versions straight away because we're investing so much money in this. We have to keep investors happy. But we will definitely have some versions available also for the community to get benefit of that. And over time, we will add more.
Okay. Galera versus MySQL group replication. Who wins and why?
I don't know. I haven't seen benchmarks that are credible for that. But what I know is that looking at the customers we have in MariaDB, we have lots of MySQL customers and MariaDB customers. I don't know almost anyone using group replication. So Galera is, when you want a multi-master, Galera is totally dominant. And knowing how much work the Galera team has been working on that, they have been doing that for more than 10 years. It's just about much more stable code base.
Okay.
And also there's also some issues with the global transaction ID that MySQL is using that has some faults that is much better solved within MariaDB. And that also makes Galera more stable. But it's a benefit of having lots more users on the cluster. And that's where we are leading, definitely. And that gives us more possibilities to find bugs and fix bugs.
Yeah. We have a question in the chat from Stefan. Will ColumnStore be in 10.5 RC as a standard plugin?
It should be. We definitely want to release the full ColumnStore as open source, and we will add it as a plugin. It's just a question about when it's ready. Thanks to the plugin, we can release it after 10.5 is released. We hope, but the thing is that 10.5 should be released within a month, and I don't think that the DB team is fully ready. The ColumnStore team is fully ready with it. They should be soon, but they still, because it's a plugin and it can be developed independent, it will be released with 10.5.
Okay. Last question from the chat. I'm very sorry, but I don't know how to pronounce the name of the person. I apologize a lot. What is the progress on the Spider storage engine?
So we have Kentoko, who is the creator of Spider. He's working for MariaDB, and one of the goals he has is to make Spider easier to use. Currently, or let's say before, you had to, when you create a Spider table, you had to go to each Spider node and create a table there, and then you create a partition on top of it on the master node. And we are working on it, maybe already ready now, or if not close to ready, so that you can create the tables directly from the master, so you don't have to go to the nodes, and that will make Spider much easier to use. I'm also working personally together with Tencent on making Spider more usable for them, and there will be some big news regarding our cooperation very, very soon.
Okay, we will.
So, but that also something also that will enhance use of Spider.
Okay, great to hear that. Okay. If someone who's listening us want to start to contribute to MariaDB in terms of code or anything else, where should they start?
I mean, we have a manual entry how to contribute to MariaDB that lists how to start, how to contact developers. Some of us are on Zulib, some of those are on Freenode. It's quite easy to get connected, and we of course also have an email list. And there's also links to easy tasks that anybody could start contributing on and learn the code. And if you are on Freenode on #Maria, you will find me there.
Great. And I think you regularly also participate to Google Summer of Code, right?
We have other people who are reviewing that. I'm more working on trying to get everything together on the server than working on Google Summer of Code. But says Sergey Golubchik, one of the best MariaDB developers, is active on that, and also others.
Great. Okay, so I close these interviews every time by asking a suggestion because, because of the lockdown, we all have a lot of time for reading because we don't leave home. So can you suggest us 2 books, if possible, one related to databases and one about any other topic you prefer?
Okay, let's start with the easier one. A Last Chance to See. Definitely the book that everybody should read, especially in these times. Written by Douglas Adams, who wrote the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. Lots of people really, really like the Galaxy book. I would say that Last Chance to See is much better.
Great.
When it comes to the database books, actually I haven't read lots of database book lately, but those who wants to learn transactional processing, the Gray book is definitely the one to go to use. I mean, when we created the Aria storage engine, everybody in the team had to buy the book and read the book. So we spent about 3-4 months just reading the book and discussing and doing architecture of Aria based on that. And that was the way that I actually learned myself all the problems of doing a fully transactional engine. And I think that Heikki did a good job within DB. Originally, he also used that book as a reference. So Gray's transactional processing. I think I even have it a couple of meters over there.
Oh, great. Okay, so this was the final question because our time is over. Before saying bye to Monty, I want to remind everyone this was the last interview of the series 2 weeks of databases. I hope that everyone found it interesting. I see enough interest about it, so it's possible that maybe I will repeat the initiative in the future, not necessarily in this form, also because interviewing one person every day for 2 weeks is quite exhausting and expensive in terms of resources. So if you're interested, maybe let me know with a comment or any other way. There are a lot of ways to contact me. So I enjoyed this particular interview with you, Monty, a lot. Thank you for your time, and I hope to meet you soon.
Can I say a last word?
Of course.
I noticed that most people can only see some part of my T-shirts, and it says "Let's eat kids," which is not something that I really want to promote. So better to read the whole one.
Let me change the view so it's easier to read it. Okay. I think they can see it.
Yeah, use a comma, save a life.
Great suggestion. Okay, so again, thank you a lot for your time, and see you soon.
See you soon. Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.